Ledger is a writing podcast and is here to encourage you to bold whichever words you want to. I'm your host, Austin Wilson, and today I am chatting with Joshua Hall, a fellow Indiana writer, a Hoosier, for those people who know what that means. It just means you live in Indiana. He's a screenwriter. He's an author. His new book, 8114, also sometimes referred to as 8114 in this interview, comes out from Clash Books August 26th, 2025. Clash is one of my absolute favorite publishers who's putting out a ton of interesting work, including Joshua's book. He also wrote a book called Mouth, out from Tenebris Press, another place that I really love. They've also been putting out a ton of stuff. And he has a movie called Glorious that is on Shudder, the premier horror streaming service. That place is fantastic. Make sure you go check out Joshua's work there as well as his books. But yeah, today we're talking about 8114, which is set in Joshua's hometown, which I happen to visit pretty regularly because I have friends who both lived there and very near there. So Joshua and I have a lot of stuff in common as far as where we grew up and the kinds of experiences we had while we were starting to make the kinds of work that we're interested in and still currently make. What else do we talk about? We talk about whether there's rules for writing screenplays or prose, and yes, those bolded and italicized words that we chat about, and what's it feel like to have a book that's so close to publication, and do you need to write a book that's set in the place that you grew up? It's kind of a thing I talked about, like I mentioned in the show with Brian Allen Carr, a fellow Clash author of Joshua and also someone who lives in Indiana, and how setting plays a role into the stuff that you're working on. But also we talk about how important it is to hang on to fun and to just try to have fun with the stuff that you're writing and reading and watching and consuming, and pushing away the idea of being mad at a thing because it didn't do what you wanted it to. I think that's super important. We chat about that a little bit. So interesting convo. I was very, very happy that Joshua stopped by to chat with me. Please check him out online. Joshua the Hall. That's Hull, not Hall. On Instagram and Facebook, and yes, his work from Tenebris Press, Clash Books, and on Shudder. As always, check out my stuff, austinrwilson.com, for my work as, a prose author, a comic book author. I'm also looking to do some editing and story analysis and read prose and screenplays and all kinds of stuff, so check that out. Also go to mossheartbooks.com, my independent bookstore, where you can, in fact, order books from me, and I can have them shipped straight to your house. Follow me on Instagram at mossheartbooks. I have a Patreon. If you want to go throw some money towards the show, you can definitely do that. It's just, I think it's Ledger Podcast, something like that. Yeah, follow me on those places and let me know what you think of the show. You can email me through my website and tell me what you think, and if there's anyone that you would like to hear on the show. But as for now, here is my chat with Joshua Hall. Today, 22 days away. From pub date for 8114.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Good. Feeling good. I'm ready. It's been a long journey. It's been such a journey on it. So I'm ready. Yeah, I'm excited.
Do you remember when you started writing it?
I want to say June. So what? It's 25, 22. So June 22, I believe. Yeah. So Glorious came out in August of 22, and I know I was kind of I'd already been tinkering with it for a little bit, but I was doing some Glorious like screenings and stuff, like in Oregon and California. And I know I was writing it in those hotel rooms as well. And so,
Yeah.
So not, it's like, it's not the journey, it's like some people spend years and years and years on a novel, and so it's just been like, it was done, and then it was postponed, and then it was, it's been a journey. So.
Well, hey, I mean, 22 to 25, like 2.5, 3 years, depending on when you started. So I'm always, one of the things I end up talking about a lot, because I'm so curious about it, is drafts, is how many drafts people did. And I'm curious if you have any concept of where you are, like drafts, as far as like right as 8114 is getting ready to come out. Do you know how many drafts you did?
Nobody's going to like to hear it, but I think I did 3 drafts, if that. Yeah. I am I think this is from my screenwriting and all that stuff, is I very much edit as I go.
Hmm.
And so whatever I started, it's a lot easier with screenwriting, obviously, because there's not so many pages and chunks and that. So I want to say I turned in the initial first 8 chapters that Clash got were probably stayed the same for the most part.
Yeah.
That they when they made the decision to go with the book, and then from there, it was a couple cleanups, but nothing too crazy.
So I'm curious then about, and I definitely want to get into the screenwriting.
Mhm.
So when Clash gets those 8 chapters, are those chapters that you're sending out agented or
Mhm.
querying with them?
No, so I genuinely, it's like a very intertwined Clash relationship that I have. So I was in the middle of adapting Michael Silinger's Anybody Home, and so because of him, I had a relationship with them. I liked their books for a lot longer than this, and I've known of Clash. The Anybody Home thing. I met Christoph and Lisa, and so it was just very much like at that point it was so early that I hadn't even started talking about writing books really, as
Yeah.
far as like fiction. I had Underexposed that came out already, so that came out, and that was my first book, but it was nonfiction, and so I hadn't even really got to that point where I was thinking about heavily writing books. It just seems so overwhelming to think about, as in the scope of screenwriting and how different it all is. And so, but I started having more conversations with myself about it. I was like,
Yeah.
if I was going to do another book, I wanted it to resemble and echo more of my screenwriting stuff. I wanted it to be, genre, and I wanted it to be. It was nonfiction. I needed a break from after,
Yeah.
and so, and then I started the conversation about Anybody Home to adapt that, and in that I had the dream for 8114 that actually inspired the novel, and that's when I was like, I think Clash would be a great home for this. And they weren't real. I mean, they've always done horror, but like they've really stepped up the horror thing over the last few years. And so Michael actually put me in touch with them, and it was just kind of an open conversation. It wasn't like a for sure thing. They wanted to read some stuff, obviously, and yeah. So those first 8 chapters, Clash was the only one to see the book.
Yeah.
And to be in consideration for the book.
Well, I love Clash too, and like you said, they've really been stepping their horror game up, and
Mhm.
that's why I found your book. A
Awesome.
book rep handed it to me, and I was super pumped about it. And a lot of Clash stuff has hit my radar because of the horror stuff that they're doing. Well, I
Mhm.
also had a recent, like maybe 5 or 6 episodes ago, I talked to Brian Allen Carr, who's another Indiana author who also has
Yep.
a book out from Clash. And before we get too far into horror and 8114 and kind of everything, I really want to talk about setting and location, because
Okay.
Brian Allen Carr and I talk about it a little bit, and
Mhm.
in that we sort of go into some of my psyche around what Indiana means to me and the ways in which that I felt like I had to escape it and that I couldn't write about it. And
Yeah.
for me, Indiana, I always felt like if I wrote about it, that I was like not cheating, but like not being creative enough. And that's a specifically me thing, not like other people. Like that was a
Right.
strict, like a thing I put on myself, a restriction. So talk to me about Indiana, because we don't live that far away from each other. Like
Right. Right.
we know a lot of the same places, and I'm just so curious about how you as a writer approach where you live and how it ended up playing such a large role in this book.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny because, every movie I've done that I directed myself has been in Indiana, not technically set in Indiana. Like you can't, but you can tell if you know Indiana, you're like, holy shit, I know where they shot that. I know where that is. Right.
Right.
And I always got that question, like, are you always going to make every movie you make here in Indy? And I'm like, well, I'm just doing it now because I have to, I have to do it
Right.
now. And then as that segues into the writing, it's like when Mouth is set in Indiana, but it's set in a town in Dillsboro that I've never really been to, but I just like literally like a chunk of the book was one of the characters. They stumble across something, and I just liked the name, how the town sounded with this name, that I was like, I'm just gonna set the whole book in Dillsboro, and
Yeah.
but it's referenced like Anderson Pendleton is kind of referenced in that book. Other places are referenced. And so I'm like, I'm always going to reference this place and this in this state because, you know, it's the only place I've ever lived is Indiana. So it's like, you know, so it would be silly for me to try to write something set in LA when I don't know LA in and out. You know, I love it. I love LA. I love in and out. But you know, like I just like, I got to write what I know and I got to write locations I know. And so that was kind of always the thing. Is I was just always going to set it in a place that I was familiar and comfortable with. And be able to talk about little weird factoids that, you know, I that only, you know, Indiana people like, you know, like Sandy Patty is like a well-known person to Hoosiers, but like how, you know, outside of like the religious crew, how many people know who Sandy Patty is and how many people like, you know, like, and it's and those little factoids that I'm like, those are interesting things that I think if people look up, like Herb Baumeister was a perfect example of this because I talk about him in Mouth quite a bit. And I started doing all these podcasts promoting Mouth, and everybody's like, "That's that." So when you made up Herb Baumeister, I was like, "No, that's a real." And then like it kind of that Hulu documentary came out, and everybody's like, "Holy shit!" Like this was like real. And so and so it's like things like that where I'm like, okay, the geography, the characters, the places. I think we have such an interesting state. For better or worse, you know, at times that it makes for such a unique setting. And so when it came down to, I didn't set out to like 8114 again it was a nightmare I had, truly terrifying nightmare. That was basically the setup for the book where one of my best friends ended up killing himself in that house. This was the whole dream. And I woke up and I was like, that was terrifying. Happened to be set at my old house that, you know, I grew up in. And that was the launching point. And then I started doing all the research about the town. You know, obviously I know a lot about Pendleton because I've lived here my whole life essentially. But you know, going to the library and reading the police logs starting in like 1800, you know, and learning all these things that are all these real life things that had happened in the span of this property or these things and these, you know, and it blew my mind. And so anyway, yeah, it was really with the house being in Pendleton, I was like, okay, the whole thing has to be set in Pendleton. Because I would be cheating otherwise. Because the story it's not only about Paul, it's not only about the podcast and everything, but it's very much about Pendleton, and it's very much about things that have happened throughout the years and the decades of this place.
One of the things I love, and it's funny because right before we logged on here, I was like scrolling through Instagram and I saw you had reposted an alternate poster for the Blair Witch Project. And it's a badass poster.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
That was one of the things that I was going to talk to you about is this sense of created reality for 8114. And it doesn't really seem like there's a place in it. I found myself being like, is this the real Joshua giving me these notes about Pendleton, or is this like I was sort of down that rabbit hole, and I kind of don't even really want an actual answer, like because I like living in that. Like I remember when the Blair Witch Project, they put out that book that was like further
the Blair Witch dossier. That's right. It's right back here. It's like
and I loved it. Like I didn't want to know if it was fake or not, and there's a part of me that doesn't want that for 8114. But as you're talking in the back and you're talking about parts of Pendleton, really, and maybe it's because I'm from here, maybe not. I can see that you love that place.
Yeah, I think, you know, for better or worse, I love this place. You know, and I think I'll go back a little bit. I'm not going to answer the question straight out of what's the real Josh and what's the real not. I will say they blend a lot of it blends, and I think people will be surprised by the actual stuff that is real and the stuff that is a little bit you know, fabricated or whatnot, but it's all me, right? Like it's all a point. Even like I was gearing up to do a podcast a few weeks ago, and I was talking about, I started called Paul Josh. I was like, well, you know, so like this is essentially me when like I was doing, and then I was like, oh my God, like I can't like, because it's not me, you know, and if people start thinking I'm Paul, I got bad news. But you know, so there's that. So just to touch on that real quick, but I do truly love this town, and I truly, you know, I've lived, like I said, I've lived here we moved here when, I was supposed to start kindergarten. I didn't go to kindergarten here. So I started in the Pendleton school system in first grade all the way up to graduation. I'm still here. I moved a couple towns over for a little bit here and there, but I came back because a lot of my family's still around. But I just genuinely, I love this town. My daughter is about to turn 20. And so she grew up in Pendleton and Fortville, like a split kind of. And so, it's just raising her and staying here and her being able to kind of experience the same thing of like how cool this town is. It's got its problems like every other town, right? But the best thing about Pendleton is it's historic. It's not, you can't change a chunk of it because it has to stay the same. And so we have this beautiful small town where you can walk around everywhere. You can, and my girlfriend, she moved here about a year ago with me, and she's from like Indy, so she never had any intention of living in Pendleton, and now you see it with her, where like she's like, it's a really cute town, it's really fun, it's really rad to be able to do all these things and be so close to, but and it's just for me as the age I am and being here my whole life and seeing everything that's changed and seeing everything that like I wanted to be when I was walking those halls of high school, to still be able to, drive a couple blocks away and see the high school that I once talked about. Oh, I want to do film, and now I'm doing all of that, and I can still look at the same building, and I just think to me that's like hugely inspirational. I hate when people like frown on people for never leaving their hometowns, or frown on people for like that sort of thing, because I'm like, every journey is different, and I think for me, I've had all my friends have essentially left town. I still talk to them and some of them be like, I can't believe you still live there. And I'll be like, I can. I love it. I raised a family here. I've become a part of the family here. And I get to sort of hopefully be a nugget of inspiration for somebody else walking through those halls that are like, hey, if he can do it, maybe I can do it.
That's one of the big things I wanted to talk about is you and I grew up very similarly, and we still ended up in the same place, essentially, where we're like, because I wanted to like film and stories and all those things were really, really important to me. And there was a stretch of my life where I was like, it seems impossible that I could do that here.
Right.
In this like cornfield. And the cool thing is like, I don't think that was ever really true, because you can do the thing you want to do wherever you are. You just have to have the energy and like just to do it.
Right.
But now, like wherever you live. And so I want to talk like us specifically talk to the people in the small towns, to the people in the Midwest, or to the people in places where they think it's not possible, because I know where you live. And if I talk to anyone like in LA and I was like, this is where Joshua lives, this is where I live, like we're doing these things that are important. And there are a lot of people who would be like, what? There's nothing there, man. Or
yeah.
So talk to me about how you took the situation that you grew up in, like the place, and that you started doing these things that have continued success for you.
Yeah. Well, I think, a lot of it came down, and I don't want to assume that you had the same phase, but I think, we all have that sort of phase where we do start believing that a little bit, and for me, it certainly was kind of my early 20s where I was like, oh, maybe this is never, like where I was having a daughter, and I was just like, oh yeah, it's probably not going to work. And then there was a part of me though, still, that I was like, I want to still pursue it heavily. When I can, obviously I had to get a, job responsibility, all that stuff is takes part. But when it came down to it, I had a group of friends that always wanted to make the movies with me, and I don't know if that was just like contagious wise, like, hey, okay, I like movies. If you're going to try it, like, it'd be super fun. And then that started out as a group of like probably 7 of us or 8 of us, and then every year it dwindled to like, and then, it was probably, it was 2009. I finally made my first movie, and that was with one of those, he produced it, and and it was just that moment where I was like, okay, we can still do it. We can't do it. We're not doing it right now the way we wanted to do it. We're not doing we're not Wes Craven. We're not doing Scream. We're doing what we can. We're doing essentially, the old shot on video trend from the early '90s. Where these things are and they're now being treasured not that not that my early stuff is gonna ever, but it's like it was just it was a gut check in the best way, because it was like, okay, we can still do it. We're all working jobs. We can still do it, and it was just slowly trying to do that crawl. I know that I am not going to get the Kevin Smith situation, right? Where I'm going to put max out credit cards and I'm going to go sell clerks to the Weinsteins, and then, and then it's all from there. No. That's not going to happen for my journey. And so it was just very much using the resources that we had, utilizing the talent that we have, because Indiana does have a lot of talent. We don't have the best film scene, as you know, but we do have talent. We do have people that love it and are passionate about it. And so really it was just replacing that group of like, okay, 7 or so friends that you had initially talked about in middle school making movies with, replacing it with this other group who were very passionate about it, in other senses, acting or behind the scenes or stuff. But it was always, that thing that it was going to be, we can still do it. We can still do everything we talked about. Then, COVID changed everything, essentially. It changed everything for a lot of people, but the accessibility of Hollywood and the business, instead of it being across the country, it was in your computer screen. Yep. And it was so easy, and it was not so easy, but like, it was so easy to talk to those people and have meetings with people and get your, and it changed everything. And I think my biggest worry coming out of COVID and all that was that it was going to go back to how it was. And so the coolest thing, the best thing I think for the industry as a whole is that it didn't go back, and they did not close the door. And it's now just become that so much more accessible and as far as that front, on the business front and getting seen. Also the same front of getting seen and getting your material out there, or the film festivals and different things. It's just, like, we would have never had that. And gosh, so graduated high school in 2000, and you're still trying to, like, if we had the stuff kids have these days, I'm not saying it would have changed anything. Listen, but I'm saying that the accessibility level and the talent level at such a young age now is so incredible, because they're growing up with these tools and these resources, and it's awesome to see. So small town accessibility has changed for everybody in all those towns, and it's just made it it's not an even game still, but it's sorry, I'm rambling. So.
No, it's all good. I mean, those things you're talking about, those opportunities. And so you graduated high school 2 years before I did. So we're pretty close. So our experience has probably been very, very similar. And like me, shooting short films on my dad's camcorder or whatever. Whatever we could get our hands on. And I mean, it is fun to think that like some of that shot on video stuff is treasured, and the idea that, like, you were like, my stuff's not good. That's what I love about art is that we have no idea. Like 20 years from now, who knows? Like, it's so much fun because of that. But seeing the young people, like I think his name's Kane Parsons. He does on YouTube. His name is Kane Pixels, but he does that Backrooms.
Oh yeah.
And that shit is so high quality, and at a place where I'm just like, how old is this guy? Like, this is crazy. It looks amazing, and it just got an option to full length feature film. So
I do remember when they announced that, and A24 is doing it. Yeah. That's like A24, and he's directing, right? And they were like, this 19-year-old kid's going to make this movie on his summer vacation. And I just looked over at my kid and I was like, what are you doing this summer? This kid's making a movie for A24 this summer, with like a mega cast. And I'm just like, she's like, drinking soda.
I mean, that is funny. Did you do that? I mean, I think everybody suffers from it a little bit from comparison. And I struggled with it a lot here, specifically because I'm like, well, they were this age. Like, Steven Spielberg was 26 and he shot Jaws.
No, I didn't suffer from that because there there wasn't really anything to compare it to, right? Like my mom was wildly supportive of me pursuing screenwriting and film, and she never rolled an eye, never wanted to tell me to think otherwise. It was very much came from a creative family, had a mom that encouraged using imagination. If you could use it to one day, make a living, that was all the better, And so I was never encouraged to stop it. I was encouraged to stop it by like ex-partners and like old friends, and things like that. We're like, are you going to get serious about life? And I'm like, I'm serious, I'm super serious. But yeah, I never, I think we all fall into that trap where we do like this Spielberg thing. Like, and we're like, God damn, but that dude grew up completely different, like he was on the studio, like, and so there's like the Kevin Smith or the Paul Thomas Anderson or all these things where you're like, we grew up with these gods of cinema, right? But we still have them, and they're still, there's people that, I'll go back, like, I got not anti, but like we all go through that phase too, where we're like, oh, no, I want to do the artsy movies. I don't want to do the big blockbuster. But then you're like, well, no, I want to do it all, and that's the thing is you mold these guys into sort of your perception of who you are, these ladies or everybody, like it's not. And that's the other best thing that's come out of it is the diversity aspect, the more options for everybody else in what we're doing. So yeah, no, I never compared myself to anybody. I just, I'll compare myself in a way of like, I want to make movies like that person, or, like I want to like Jodie Hill and Danny McBride is sort of like the prime example now, where I'm just like, man, that's kind of, they're kind of living the dream that I would like to compare myself to but yeah.
Oh,
getting off base.
No, and specifically Jodie Hill and McBride. I think it looks like they are, one, having a blast, and then two, telling stories at a really high level, and telling interesting stories at a really high level. And if they do end up adapting the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, I will be so psyched.
Yep, same. Yeah, they're and that's the thing is, you want that opportunity to be able to kind of cross genre, cross, and they seem to master just that wave of going from comedy to horror, like doing all this stuff. And that's the thing is David Gordon Green as well is one I would consider, who's a guy that just seems to be able to do whatever he wants and is great at, and so that's what I would compare myself to, is strive to just, okay, I want the creative, not control, but the creative freedom to sort of kind of bounce back and forth with whatever I'm doing. And
and I think audiences have changed enough too now that they are more willing to embrace differences in creators. Like when King came out, when Stephen King first starts publishing, and his agent's like, you better watch out, you're gonna be a horror guy. And
right.
King's like, well, one, he knew who he was, but I think now, though, because media and stories are just everywhere and we're all constantly being inundated with stories, I think it's easier for us now than probably even 10 or 15 years ago to be like, that person wrote a drama, but they also wrote this insane comedy. Right. And if you want to do those things, having the freedom to do them now, like, there's never been more.
Right. Yeah, the appetite for creation, and the appetite for just being able to watch whatever you want to watch, and support these growing voices and support these. Yeah, it's awesome. It's great.
So talk to me about screenwriting. I really like, so for any listeners out there who don't write screenplays or who only write prose or vice versa, the styles are different. There are similarities, obviously, but screenplays, you're writing in present tense. This thing happens, the door opens.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your sort of navigating those, not pitfalls, but just like the form and the things that are required or expected of those forms. And I'm curious how long you've been writing screenplays versus prose. So kind of a blanket question, how long? And then also, like, let's talk about navigating the things that are expected.
So screenwriting, it was always, aside from in your local as well. So you're going to remember like the Jim Davis books that you would write, like have to write in like elementary school. So I don't count that as my introduction to prose, but I do like I was writing like little horror shorts and stuff with those. But so I think I was probably fifth grade when I decided I wanted to be a screenwriter. Like it was very early where it was just like I want to do that. And then, of course, I didn't know what that meant, truthfully. Like, I didn't know and so it was really, I want to say going into like middle school, sixth grade, middle school was when I really spent a lot of time kind of studying up and getting screenplays. This is when the Miramax was publishing all their screenplays. So it was right around that time. And Scream and From Dusk Till Dawn were the first screenplays I ever bought, and I was, and luckily those were the kind of movies I wanted to write and make. And so I really just dove into learning the craft, and I tried to learn it from the actual material, because I did find myself in that trap of the books of like the rules and and I did find myself in that trap a little years later where there's so many different voices, talking. And so I really just try to go to the actual screenplays and really pick up that structure. And I found it not as hard as people make it out to be. So sixth grade, really, really starting to tackle and write the screenplays in late, like that summer between sixth and seventh grade. I know I was writing screenplays in seventh grade, obviously like 30-page screenplays, sure, if that, that are like, it's done, it's a full movie, and it's like, it's not even a first act. It's like, and it's like, and then the prose, genuinely, I was writing some stuff, but Mouth is really the prose debut, and that's like really the first time that having to go from the screenplay format to that and try and juggle both of those at the same time, and just the not headache, but the shit, these are so different. Yep. And these are so, like the POV, just the POV, like getting notes from Alex over at Tenebris on Mouth, where she's like, you're using the wrong POV for all these. I'm like, like it must have been a day where I was working hard on the screenplay, so that's about the difference. So, I mean, it's a good amount of difference where I've been writing screenplays for a very, very long time and still relatively fresh to the prose aspect. So that's the first part, long-winded first part answer. And then the second part is just like the format. Like, do I believe in the rules? Do I believe in like all that stuff? Is that what you want to know? Like, do I follow certain rules?
Not do you believe in them. So one of the reasons why I asked is I was kind of getting around to one of the things that jumped out at me at 8114 is, and this is kind of like insane inside baseball and maybe boring, but I was curious about the use of bolding the text, and because I've written prose for longer than I've like you, I very early on was like, I'm going to write movies. Kevin Smith went to Vancouver. I'm going to go to Vancouver, like that kind of shit. And so I've been writing, but like very seriously writing screenplays didn't come for me until much later, whereas I've been writing prose since I was really, really young, including those Jim Davis books. But that's one of the things, like in 8114, having bold text and this like different font treatment, that's a thing that I personally, as like a prose person, would be like, oh, I can't believe that they did that. Not in a sense that like I'm aghast or anything.
No,
like,
a lot of people have been like that. A lot of people have been like, what the fuck is up with the bold and the italics?
well, I'm curious then, because I think, one, people get scared. And I think that is one of those things where you're like, there are rules, sir. And to me, it's like, that's not a rule. Like, I like the idea of thinking of guides. Like we're going to guide this thing and try to hit these certain things. But so talk to me about that then, like all the bolded words. Cause I was curious, how, you guys came to that.
So genuinely it's, and you can play a drinking game with how many times I say genuinely on this thing as,
I have those too.
Yeah. But My screenwriting style is I like to bold. I like to use italics. I like to tell a story.
Yeah.
So I like to tell a story, and I'll even do things like post action line. I'll write jokes, in where I'm actually like talking to the reader, like
Yeah.
just I'll just add my personality. I know a lot of people do that, so it's not breaking news or anything, but I just very much believe, yes, a screenplay is a blueprint, but it's also a story.
Right.
And I think our job is to tell a story. And you don't just sit around a campfire telling a story dull as hell,
Right.
and like boop, 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 boop. You're telling a story. You're trying to entertain people, right?
Right.
And so every single thing that I write, I want it to be entertaining. Even if it just gets one laugh, I want it to be something that somebody will be like, okay, that was a super fun read, or like that was a super cool thing. And so I didn't utilize it a lot in mouth, but I did. But I was writing mouth and 8114 at the same time, and so I was very much like 8114 was going to be the closest thing to me to one of my screenplays in the sense of structure. It's a solid 3-part, broken into 3-part screenplay thing. It does have scripts in there, not full, not traditional screenwriting scripts, but it does have dialogue. And so I was like, I am just going to write this thing like I would and embellish moments in this novel. Not trying to tell the reader how to feel, not trying to tell anybody how they should read or feel about whatever that line is or that chunk of the book is. But I was just very much like, I'm telling a story, and this is a big moment to Paul, or this is a big moment for whoever. And so I just went with it, and I turned in the book, and nobody ever said anything. They were
No
just
one said
like,
a word.
they said, no, they didn't say, hey man, you can't do that. They said, people are going to fucking flip their shit. And I started seeing a lot of pushback, and a lot of people stopped reading the book because of it. And so when we were finalizing the book, the book's been done for about a year.
Yeah.
But when we were just going through like the final, hey, we're about to go to printing. Let's make sure everything is good. And it was even to the point where I was like, hey guys, do we want to take out all the bolds and the italics? Like, I'm starting to get a little self-conscious here about, and they're like, no, this is like, that's all staying. And I was like, thank God. I was like, cause there's a lot of them, and I did not want to go, but yeah. So I genuinely, I wanted to tell a unique story, maybe not even a unique story. I wanted to tell a story that maybe seems on the surface is a story that has kind of been told before. The haunted house, the whatever, somebody comes home about a haunted house. But I wanted to tell it in my unique way, not only from my POV, but also in the way that I like to write my screenplays.
Yeah.
And so that was really, there was really nothing outside of me just trying to tell an interesting story in an interesting way.
See, for me, when I was reading it, one, I didn't stop the book because of it. But I knew I wanted to ask about it. I have stopped a book because of a font change before. I'll tell you which book that is off air. But the thing here with the bold and the italics didn't jump out at me at all. That felt all like quote unquote normal. The bold seemed to me like an extension of Paul. Like it was an aspect of his character, of this person who's online, who's living in a world that formats text and in ways to highlight emotion, and in ways that, like, if I'm texting to my friends and I can't bold something, like I'll put asterisk next to it. We live in this world now where there's this other layer of us talking to each other. That's how I read it, that it was this extension of Paul.
No, it's perfect. It's a perfect read on it. And not to mention the fact that Paul is himself very much a bold character and a sideways character, like it's Alex. Like he's very, like it's very much done in a way that we're stuck with Paul through and through, not only in story but also in style and how sort of, and again, it's hitting the mark because people are aggravated, but it's aggravating. He's aggravating. He's an aggravating person to be stuck with. And so, like, you got to make this an awkward, unique thing. And that's, so I'm glad you picked up on that for sure.
I think it does serve its purpose, and also I think I like, and I mean maybe bravery is the wrong word, but I like at least the commitment to being like, no, I'm going to do this thing. Like this is what it is. And like, okay, you're pissed. I get it. This is still what it is. We're not changing it.
No, and I've been one of the new things. And I don't know if it'll ever happen, but part of it was born out of this sort of frustration with this outlook of like, there are no rules to telling stories. Like, right. And there are like, yes, there are expectations. Like, but I'm like Daniel Krauss just put out a whole book that's one sentence long, and everybody's like, holy shit. I'm still like, holy shit. I remember when he told me he was doing that last year at an event. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I didn't even tell my editor. I just turned in the book, and it was one sentence. And I was like, that's awesome. That's incredible. That's what we all should strive to do is do something different and do something unique, because books have been around forever. And yeah, there's expectations, but it's very much my thing with screenwriting, where it's like, come on, we're just tell a story, like entertain people however you can. And let's let go of some of these handcuffs or whatever. But yeah, so this thing I'm writing, it was like very much like, it just this. I don't want to spoil it because like I said, I don't know if it'll ever happen. But when I was talking about it with the potential publisher, I was like, okay, here's what it is. Here's the thing. It's about these things, and these things have some writing, like famously with them, but it's short writing. And I'm like, so I'm talking about the whole thing, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and by the way, every sentence is only going to be that long. Like the whole book is going to be told like just that quick. Like we're not doing full paragraphs. We're doing, and they were just like, oh, that's okay. And I was like, it's just because it was my reaction to this, where I was just like, I'm so, and in this, the character talks to like it's like a found thing. So he's like, first thing you're going to need to know, I'm going to tell the story my fucking way. There are no rules. So don't expect and it's like very much like, I'm seeing too much of these comments about the bold and the italics. And I'm just like, it's weird. It's wild to me. But also, everybody's free to like whatever they like. And if they don't like it, that's fine.
That's what, I mean, you said so much there that I want to try to get to.
Sorry.
No, I'm like just overflowing with all of these things, because I love the idea of having fun with stories, even difficult stories or even important stories, and telling a story to entertain someone, even if it contains horrific things. That is like often than not, that's what a story is for. It's there to entertain us, whether we are entertained as we're learning or any of those things. But this sort of dedication to rules and the things that we shouldn't do. And I remember, so Michael Chabon is one of my favorite authors. He wrote I think it's a 14-page sentence in, I think the book is Moonglow. And it pissed me off. Like, I remember being like, this is ridiculous. I'm exhausted by this. Why would you do this? And he's literally like this illustration over my shoulders from Cavalier and Clay. Like, I adore him. But I engaged with it in a way that I didn't expect to, and I still loved the book, and but it did push at me and sort of like upset me in a way that I wasn't ready for. And I forget who it was. I saw someone say this recently. Actually, I think it was on one of those Criterion Closet videos where someone was saying, oh, it was Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg was talking about how being entertained is one of the most overrated aspects of art. He's like, watching Blue Velvet is like, my daughter hated it and she was agitated and she was completely put off by it and was engaged in this way and he was like, and I think we put so much more value on like fun and which is the opposite side of the coin of what we were just talking about, where we're like, we want to have fun telling stories. But I do think both of those things are super important, having fun, but then also being like, you're going to be pissed at this.
Yeah.
get into
But
it.
I think that's the human nature. I think that's very much what we. I mean, not to, but that's why we very much find ourselves in the way that everybody's living life right now. It's like everybody forgot to have fun, but also everybody takes things way too serious. Like if we can just mold those things a little, we can be serious, but we can still have fun. Like we do some dark shit in 8114.
Yep.
In one sentence, it'll be the darkest shit some people will ever read, and then the next sentence is a joke, and it's like that's very much like we gotta. I think it's crucial just to get back to literally having some more fun and still being able to take things serious, but at the same time, we are finding ourselves in this moment of just everybody's either mad about something all the time or they're taking things way too serious, when it's just like we are all just humans, like we're all just people. And if in the big scope of this world you're going to be mad about or annoyed by the bold and italics or something completely unique to a reading, then it's just like, it's not that serious of a thing. And I just think there's far more to be concerned about in the world.
Well, also you said a thing earlier about this thing not being for someone and that being okay. Like that's another thing that I think this trap that people keep falling into because of all kinds of things. But this idea that something's not for them and that means that thing is failing.
That means that thing is bad. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like, just because you dislike it, like fine, dislike it. Right. Saying it's bad, one is kind of like, I get it. We use that word as a catch-all, like, oh, that thing sucks. And what you really mean is I didn't like it. And it, language is mutable. But the idea that you should then do something about it instead of just being like, nah, I'm just going to go over here and it can go over there. We get sucked into this thing that we have to do something about that thing being bad or that thing sucking and not being for me. It's ridiculous.
It's also that it goes hand in hand with that, new movie reviews or new TV show reviews, specifically a lot with movie reviews where it's like, well, it's not perfect. Motherfucker, there's probably 10 perfect movies in this world. Like, like what are we like? What are we? What are we comparing? When did the scale of like a Marvel movie have to hit perfect?
Right.
Like it's just like, wait a minute. We weren't even getting these movies 20 years ago, you know, and now it's all of a sudden like it has to be perfect or I'm throwing a fit. And it's just like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We watched Howard the Duck and we were totally fine with it. Yeah. Like we still watch Howard the Duck and we're still totally fine with it. But yet it's like,
you're like, oh, Winter Soldier's not, it's not heat.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah, it's just like, what? I don't know, guys. Like what, like this weird expectation that everything, it's either perfect or it's bad. There's no middle ground. There's no even like high ground. There's no, it's weird.
It's very, very goofy. Do you interact? Like, does that stuff hit your mind at all as you're writing, or?
Not till recently.
Yeah.
but it's, and it's genuinely, it was, but I think it's all momentarily, right? Like I'm seeing a lot of stuff right now just because the book's about to come out.
Yeah.
I won't think too much about the bold and the italic stuff or the how are people going to react to it thing. Yeah. Starting in September. I don't know. I think I try not to be reactionary to anything. I think that's a bad way to go about things. I want to defend myself a lot, but I think that's just the creator and us. And not even defend. I just want to be like, well, wait a minute. Let me explain, like, like what or like people are like, Paul's a very terrible person. Yeah, no shit. Like he's supposed to be a bad. He's supposed to be a bad guy. Like I never said he was a hero. And so we were like, we really hate the main character. I'm like, that was genuinely the goal of the book, is to make you really hate this guy. And so I think, I try not to. I don't read every review. I try not to do that. But I'll look at things if I'm tagged in them, and I'm just like, some things will pique my curiosity, and some people will have a problem with the end or something, and I'll say, hey, shoot me a question if you have any, or they'll be like, there's unanswered questions. I'll say, hey, feel free to hit me up and ask me. I'll happily tell you.
Yeah.
And that's actually like happened a few times where I've explained some things and they'd be like, holy shit, I got to go read the book now. And, like read it
That's
again.
cool.
And
Yeah.
with that. And so I just, I think years of screenwriting and years of like being, and you'll probably feel this 100%, but screenwriting is so lonely, and the percentage of people that actually read screenplays, is so small. So like when you have a screenplay go out and like 10 people read it and they all love it, it's like, oh shit, I'm really good at screenwriting,
Yeah.
and then you have a book that goes out, and everybody's reading it and everybody's giving their opinion, and it's like, oh shit, I'm not good at writing at all, or like, oh, I'm glad people love it, or I'm glad, and so it's like, it's that's the other big difference between screenwriting and prose writing is just the reach and the readership and the reaction, and how one is not meant to really be read, and then the other one, and so it's years of privatized writing on my end that I'm now like, oh shit, I'm now like being read by like 10 people, like 20 people now instead of 10 people.
That is a crazy thing that I maybe people don't even really think about. Yeah, is the likelihood your screenplay gets read.
Yeah, it's genuine. I don't think a lot of people think about that, and by I don't think a lot of people think about screenplays in general. But I think like us as screenwriters, I don't think we ever sit down to think about the lifetime of a screenplay, how many times it's actually read. And the very small percentage that is.
So here's
through the amount of work that we do.
Right. So that, to your point, I just finished a draft August, at the beginning of September. Wait, July, the beginning of July.
Like, damn, you're ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't mess around. Beginning of July. And then I sent it to someone to read, which means that I will have been writing that thing for a year or something. And by the end of this month, one person other than me will have read it.
Right.
A single person.
It's insane. It's an insane to think about, but like it's awesome too, because you're like, it's very controlled. It's a very controlled, creative endeavor. But at the same time, it's the years of, this is so what you said, 6 months, essentially 6 months you've been on that, right?
Yep.
Or yeah. And then you're going to get notes back, and then you're going to go back into it. And then before you ever show it to somebody else, you're going to be on that thing for probably about a year, which is, and for a year without even a clear path forward, like if know it's ever going to come to life. And that's the thing is it's mind boggling, that we enjoy it so much.
It is. What's our problem? What's wrong with this?
Like I was at a dinner party for a friend earlier this year, and it was a lot of people I hadn't met, and going, it's that traditional. Some people going around, I meet new people. Like, oh well, what do you do? Well, I'm a screenwriter. And they're like, well, yeah, how's that work? And I'm like, I'll let you know when I figure it out. And like they thought I was joking, and they're like, no. So like, how's it work? I'm like, okay, well, So for instance, the movie we set up after Glorious, literally probably within a few months of Glorious being out. I was like, Rebecca and I set that up in 2022, and I was like, and now it's 2025, and we're still going over that final hump to get into production. And they're like, yeah, but you got paid, right? And I'm like, I'll get paid when it goes into production. And they're like, so how's that work? So you've been doing, years of work for free? And I'm like, no. It's like, there's a little bit, but like, you don't get paid until the thing gets made. And this person was just like, I don't understand. And I was like, yeah, I know. Like, it's hard to explain. Yeah. I was like, but it's really cool and really fun and really worth it.
It's a special kind of math. And
it's a special kind of rad. And man, yeah.
Honestly, like I've talked to other writers about that, is like that length of time, because for me, the first things that I got out there were comics, and I can't draw. So I've always had to write scripts and work with illustrators, and publishing is slow, and sometimes movies can be fast, but those are the rarities. Like
the rarities. Yeah. I mean, like Glorious, even like a 2-person thing still, I mean, from the time Rebecca came on, I mean, it still took 2 years until it came, and that's a one location movie with, and so that's still as going as quick as I've been a part of something, and I
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's but it all makes it worth it, right? And like
Mhm.
that's the thing, it's like it's all fun and it's all the process is part of it. Where it is just we don't get to talk about our fun stories if we didn't have that process, if we didn't have these journeys or this time length, and I
Right.
think Mouth is the quickest thing. So Mouth went from first draft turn in or contract first draft to on bookshelves within a year, like from 1 year.
Oh,
Like it was
damn.
a quick turnaround. So, and that's the quickest I've ever had anything go, and it was awesome. And it was, but at the same time, it was like there was no time to waste,
Yeah.
on anything. And so, yeah, it's every project's different, and that's the fun, that's the journey.
Yeah. You never know what it's going to be. And also, if you ahead of time, if you know, like, that's why I try to talk to people who are like, I have ideas I want to write. And I'm like, all right, so you're either going to write them or you're not. I can't help you actually write them. We can talk about, how you're
Yeah,
doing it and stuff. But when you have to face down the idea that you might have to spend a year, 2 years, 3 years, like I was telling a writer the other day, I was like, there are books on the shelf behind you right now that took 10 years
yeah,
to come
yeah,
out. 10
yeah,
years.
yeah.
And that person didn't abandon it. So if you are willing to accept you might end up in that situation, like, then this is for
Go
you.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. That's what I say something similar to, and then I always say if there's nothing in this world you want to do other than that, then you should do this. And that for me was screenwriting, where I was like, there was never a backup plan. And anytime I'm like, somebody's like, oh, I want to do this, but I'm like, well, why aren't you? Yeah, I want to do this too. I'm like, well, then do that, because
Yep.
like if you don't want to do the work that it's going to take, because if you're just now starting out as a screenwriter, I mean, gosh, not only writing the script, but you got a journey, you got a whole decade before you make any sort of path forward. Maybe less than that at this point, but I mean, yeah, it's just we're a special kind of breed. I think every creator, every artist, everybody who sees through that struggle and pushes through to finish something, which is the most important part, is just finishing something, even if it's a shit screenplay or a bad book or a bad draft or something. The whole point is getting something to where you can shape it, and if you can't even get to that point, then it'll be a tough ride, I
Yep.
think.
I could not say it better. That is exactly true. So 8114 by Joshua Hall comes out from Clash Books on August 26th. As of this recording, 22 days
22,
away.
22.
Available where fine books are sold. Is there anywhere online you want to direct people to?
Yeah, I mean, you can find, I'm on Instagram, really, Joshua the Hall, all lowercase, Hull, and then Facebook. Other than that, I'm not really active on any of the other platforms at this point. It got too much. There was just too many things. So I just, you know, and nobody really cares anyway. So it's just like,
Well, I mean,
and
that's how I
then
found you. I was like, "Hey,
yeah,
what?
yeah,
This guy
that's
lives
true.
in Indiana. I gotta talk to him."
But yeah, so it's Instagram and Facebook, really.
Hell
So
yeah! So
yeah,
I'm looking forward for people grabbing the book and seeing what you do next.
awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This was rad.
Thanks, man. 8114 by Joshua Hall, published by Clash Books, is out on August 26th, 2025. If you are listening to this after that date, what are you waiting for? Go grab the book. You could even order it from mossheartbooks.com if you want to. Check out all of his other work, too. Go to Tenebris Press. Check out Mouth. He's got the movie Glorious on Shudder. And who knows, by the time you're listening to this, maybe that other thing he's talking about that he was writing is already out. Maybe that other movie that he was doing with Rebecca McKendry is out. Who knows? Thank you so much to Joshua for stopping by and chatting. I loved this chat. And again, whoever you are listening to this out there, you can do what you have in your mind. You can do it. It just depends on the energy, the drive, the dedication. Those are the things that you really need. And if you're in it and you want to go on that long haul, however long or short it might end up being, all you got to do is start. Again, go to my website, austinrwilson.com. Check out my stuff online. I have comics, short stories, all kinds of stuff up there. I do read screenplays, prose, short stories, novels. I'm going to be having a pricing sheet come out sometime soon to talk about what it'll cost to do story analysis and editing for certain kinds of writing. So check out that on my website when it is up. Follow me online at Mosshart Books. That's on my Instagram. That's really the only social media I have other than a Substack, which I kind of use sort of every once in a while, but not really. But yeah, leave a comment, like, subscribe, rate the show, do all those things. It really, really does help. I appreciate you listening and telling other people about the show. I'll see you next time.